Now let's talk about queues. Queues are containers that can hold an unlimited number of items. By using queues, we can distribute the workload to different robots so that they can handle these transactions in parallel. And this is extremely useful for large organizations that have a great number of transactions. And when dealing with queues, we usually use a dispatcher and performer model. The dispatcher is a workflow that we use to upload the transactions to the queue. And the performer is a workflow that takes the transaction out from the queue and process them. In this practice, we are going to create a dispatcher in the UiPath Studio and use this dispatcher to upload transactions to the queue in the Orchestrator. Now I will show you how to create a queue in the Orchestrator and how to create a dispatcher workflow that can upload data to the queues. So let's first go to the Orchestrator and create a queue. To do that, let's go to the default folder and queues. To create a new queue, let's use the add button. And here we can name our queue as Q1. For the description, we can use for testing. And now let's use add. Now you can see that you just created a new queue. Now let's come back to the UiPath Studio. And here you should create a new project named queue. And here we are going to create a dispatcher process that can upload data from an Excel file named input to the Orchestrator. After you create the project, you should make sure that you put the input file, the input Excel file, in this folder. And you can download this input Excel spreadsheet from Canvas. And we can also take a look at the data in this Excel sheet. And we can see that we have two columns, incomes and payments. So here we are going to upload each row of this data to the queues. So now let's first use a read range activity from the workbook. And let's leave the range as blank. In the properties section, let's create a new variable named table to store the table. Now, to upload each row of this data table to the queues, let's use for each row. For each row in the table, we want to use an activity named add queue item. Now, this activity will upload the data, each row, to the queues. In the properties section, first we need to specify in which queue are we uploading the data. And this is in the queue name. Here, since we created a queue named Q1, let's use Q1 here. And now let's go to the item information section and click on the three dots. And here we need to create two arguments, each representing incomes and payments respectively. Let's first create an argument called income. And in the value, we can use row 0 to string. Because in the data table, incomes are stored in the first column. For the second argument, we can use payment. And for the value, we can use row 1 to string. Now let's click OK. And let's close the Excel file and also save and run the process. Now let's come back to the Orchestrator. To see whether we have uploaded these transactions to the queue, let's go to the View Transactions. And here we see that we have these new transactions waiting to be processed. To see the details of each transaction, we can use the View Details. So here, this is where you can see the values. So for this transaction, the income is 78 and the payment is 87. So here we have created a dispatcher that can upload data to the queues.